I got 5 o'clock straight up. Are you okay, Allison?
We're not live streaming on YouTube yet.
Okay. Something up.
Yeah, no, it's up.
Something just came up, unable to stream.
Never seen that.
Never saw that.
No.
Eric.
Yes.
Green sheets. We were. It was pretty. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just let defensive line to see get a touchdown.
I don't have certain information because I am responsible for
they're
this
like-
portion of the meeting setup now, so I don't know what the stream key is, because they're supposed to be using it.
First round.
So I'm not exactly sure
Rather than have to put out
what I
Friday.
can do to get it online.
I think they won 6 or 7 games.
I can run upstairs.
Yeah, I guess we should try and see if somebody's. All right, a little technical difficulty. We'll see. Here's Amanda. Good.
Second.
No,
Waiting for.
there's an issue going streaming live on YouTube. He's responsible for having that all linked up. Yeah.
So what is it, just upload it? Is it stuff everything?
Can't ask me. I'm not an IT person.
So I'm playing.
Oh, you're coming back in.
Murder.
This ordinance that has to be flag green. Well, public notice and everything's good.
No minutes or anything?
Right.
Oh, okay. It's not being recorded.
I think it's being recorded.
So, yeah, I think it's being recorded. I got an issue to discuss with you all. I was going to do it at the end, but take notice of our proposed schedule for next year.
Second.
Yeah, January 2nd.
That's a fun one.
So it's moved to Thursday. That's a Thursday because the first is on a Wednesday.
Okay, second is already a Thursday.
Yes, is that good or bad? Or the option would go to I think the room is occupied the 8th. We could do it Tuesday, the 7th.
I have to do something with the birthday that evening, so I'd rather not do that day.
Not do the 2nd,
Mhm.
right?
You'd rather
We've
do a
heard-
different day than the second, so the seventh,
January 7th.
following Tuesday, does that work?
Zoning's over here.
It's
So January 21st.
Don't do that.
Oh, we don't do
They
that.
have to speak in person.
Okay.
The 14 days from the 21st.
There's
to
a
get to
four.
the 7th.
They've only got one in January. That's weird.
It is many years. Maybe the submittal date.
Yeah, it's just the way, yeah.
So as you heard. Well, Zoom.
I believe that would be my last meeting.
Which one?
Yeah. So we can upload the video afterwards on YouTube. It's just not like current responsive.
Yeah, but I hate to because I'm not having a, or, you know,
There will be a recording.
I just don't know what I'm doing for her birthday, and I think my sister might still be here. So. Whatever. It usually comes for New Year's and then Walter's birthday is like the second, which is a terrible day. But we'll have the record.
Okay,
Thanks.
all right, we're going to move forward. Zoom records. The video still is going. People that are home wanting to log on tonight and watch just won't be able to, but we'll upload the video later. So with that said, let's
All
kick
right.
this off, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your patience today. This is the November 6th, 2024 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals, Site Design. Present are Amanda Barton, Jeff Webb, Paula Summers, myself, Joel Adrian. Present by the planning staff, Sarah Schultz. These proceedings are being recorded and we ask that those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The board reserves the right to ask questions of staff, the applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application, open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, deny, or defer the application. Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design has the authority to do three things. One, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Two, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And three, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54(9)24 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum are present and qualified to vote. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, application of the ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good. Character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. So with that, we'll go to our first item, which is actually going to be an old item. It is review of the minutes for the September 4th, 2024 meeting. And Eric, please remind. who
Yes.
Is,
So if you see here, the members present, we have 3 present tonight. So Joel, Amanda, and Paula, you'll vote on this.
oh, there we go, that's right. Okay, so are there any questions on the minutes discussion, or is there a motion?
Make a motion, we move to approve.
A second.
All right, so all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved, 3-0. The next item is going to be item A2, which is review of the minutes from the October 2nd, 2024 meeting.
This one changes a tad bit. This is Jeff,
Joel.
Joel, and Amanda.
All right, same thing. Are there any questions or discussion on the minutes, or is there a motion?
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
I in
Aye.
favor.
Aye. Approved 3-0. Excellent. Now we will go on to our next item, which is going to be 18 Church Street. Request reconsideration of the zoning administrator's decision to approve a landscape fountain. Oh, sorry, PMS number 45716040048, zone SR4. That goes to you, Eric.
Yes, so this is a little unusual for this board. I don't know if maybe I've all had but one appeal to a decision by this board in my 27 years. So present, as you can see, we have legal representation from different parties as well as our legal staff to help me guide us through this tonight. As you may know, the zoning administrator is retired. He made the decision that this particular appeal would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design. I had some involvement in this case, and I'll just kick off the slide presentation. So this is the application submitted in the appeal form. If you recall, this was deferred from last month's meeting. I sent this document because it's very large to you all in PDF form. I don't know if you had time to read through it, but it's very lengthy. I just included a few sheets instead of all the numerous sheets. The property in question is 18 Church Street. It's on the lower end of Church, south of Atlantic, zone SR4. This is just a larger map of the area. This is an aerial shot. Please note that the car is parked in front of the carriage house. The house obviously is on the north side of the lot. There are a couple of grand trees on the southern property line. You can see their canopies. The driveway is on that southern property line as well. Access through a gate. There's just a shot, street view. So this is the a slide out of the 92-page appeal document available upon request. As you can see, my fellow colleague Craig Bennett approved the plan for the pool fountain landscape on July 31 of 2024. Before I move forward, I want to just give you a brief history of how I was involved in the project. And I do have a email thread here for folks to look at. But basically the project, I got involved November 30 of 2023. I received an email from Wertimer and Klein Landscape Architects explaining what their client was proposing to do to the property. It was my understanding that the carriage house was going to be renovated, and I think there might have been a small addition added. And then a total rework of the existing garden and motor court or driveway, if you will. So they presented documents to me, the original survey, they showed the tree protection zones, as you see there on this exhibit. And, I had some questions. So on, again, November 30th of 2023, the city responds. And I asked for zoning has reviewed the plans and has the following to offer. Provide an existing condition survey, provide a demolition plan, which with notes regarding the phasing of hardscape removal, how hardscape should be removed. Provide a tree protection barricade plan, provide a tree protection barricade detail, and provide a scaled site plan indicating the plumbing routing for the pool, no trenching in the tree protection zones. So on 12/1/2023, the city responds an update from Wertimer and Klein with modified documents and notes, and it also included a tree preservation plan, if you will, from Bartlett Tree Experts dated 11/17/23. So I continued to review those, and then on 12/18/2023, I sent an email back to Wertimer and Klein indicating that I was satisfied with the notes, the plan, the tree preservation plan, and to move forward with approvals. There was BAR involved. I couldn't tell you the whole timeline on BAR. But obviously on 7/31/2024, the applicant submitted via, I assume, through the portal, the digital documents to request zoning approval and permits. So that's when my colleague signed off on the plan, which is included here. You see the stamp in the upper right. So basically, that was my involvement. Since then, we've had this issue come to be, and Mr. Batchelder made the decision that it was going to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So of course, I then visited the site, and I have these photos to show you. Here's the fountain itself. The detail. So this was 9/27 in prep for that meeting that was deferred last week. The project was still under construction. But the driveway, in my opinion, was gingerly removed. I don't think they got crazy with equipment. As per the notes, you can see that you can almost see where the depth of the sidewalk, in my opinion, where that concrete was removed. They then implemented their hardscape, and there's the fountain at that stage in September. Another shot. So my back is to Church Street. Part of the plan was to keep the concrete driveway in place during the pool construction. And then as they backed out, they removed the remaining portions of that driveway, and then kept maybe some of the existing concrete, or they poured new concrete to put the bluestone and brick. This is 11/1. Again, I had to go back down and post for tonight's meeting. And you can see that the exposed areas that were soil were lightly backfilled and planted with plant material. And you can see the finished product here. I think the contractors were still working in the carriage house. So staff recommends that we went through what we thought was a thorough review and study of the project. Felt that with the existing conditions and the protocols put in place, that it could be permitted for construction. So we uphold our approval.
All right, thank you, Eric. Is the applicant present?
Yes. Or do you have our? Yes, so can I ask you to assist me to? I don't want to lose Zoom. Last time I touched something, we lost Zoom, so it's in.
Sweet.
Stop share here.
Yeah. And then do you have it pulled up already?
Yeah. GTW revised slide deck.
Stan.
And then screen share.
Yeah.
Slideshow.
There we are. We're on a technical roll here.
Yes, we are.
Keep the train going,
Thank
baby.
goodness for these young ones. All right, thank you, Allison. All right, you just tell me when to advance.
Thank you very much. And thank you, board. My name is Brennan Walker. I'm here on behalf of Mike and Susie O'Neill. We're sitting in the front row next to them is Mrs. Simmons, who's a neighbor, and to their left is my partner, Jennifer Ivy. I'm going to do my best to simplify this since you do not need to review all 84 pages to understand what the issue is in this case. My clients, the O'Neills, live at 16 Church Street, which is adjacent to 18 Church Street. As you heard from Eric, in late 2023, the Strongs at 18 Church Street provided a plan for approval that was a major overhaul of their garden that included a pool and other improvements. My clients became concerned when they learned that the plans that were submitted by Wertimer Klein were based on an erroneous survey that had the property line moved over towards 16 Church Street, such that my client's house was actually shown as being on the Strong's property. And all of the plans were based on that. I think it's conceded now by the Strongs and their attorney that that was incorrect. My clients did not act further and didn't appeal before this particular application for the fountain and for the fence because they were unaware of all the notices, unaware of all the applications that had been made because no notices were posted on Church Street. But what you have here today is the first one that they knew about. There was a BAR notice on 18 Church, which prompted them to look and they realized that there was approval by the BCA and the BZA staff approved on July 31 the fountain and hardscape associated with it. As you will see, the fountain and surrounding hardscape were subject to an earlier condition for the protection of trees that was never adhered to over the course of this whole project. And you're going to see that they proceeded with the pool, with the hardscape, with the fountain without adhering to it. And now I'd like to show you the proof of that. Eric, if we could have the second slide. Oh, wait, is this number 2?
That's where we started, right there.
Okay, here we are. Why don't we go to the first one? All right, here you have the plan as originally submitted, which had the lawn in this area. On July 31st, that was changed to put in the hardscape, the additional hardscape around here and the fountain as you see. So there's a significant amount of additional hardscape. There are 2 grand trees. If we go to the next one, Eric, please. The grand trees are large. There's a 28-inch live oak here and a 33-inch laurel oak here. You all deal with trees all the time on this board and know the protection that trees are entitled to and the tree protection zone that goes with each tree. Eric, if we could have the next slide, please. This is a slide looking down towards Church Street that shows the very large, I think this is, I'm not sure whether it's a laurel oak or the live oak. I think it may be the
Laurel Oak is the one in the foreground.
Yeah, the laurel is here in the live oak, and you can see that it's right on the property line. These stakes they're subject to dispute about where the property line is, but there's no question that that live oak is hardy and it's on the property line. All right, if we go to the next one. As Eric also said, the applicant went to Bartlett's to get an opinion letter that would allow them to intrude into the tree protection zone. But what's important and what you need to keep in mind is what this letter says. And if you look at the letter, it says that the recommendation is to leave the existing driveway in place until the heavy equipment needed for the pool is finished. This will keep any new compaction to the oak to a minimum, as it will act as protection to the root system in that area. Once the pool equipment is finished, the driveway should be removed without the use of heavy equipment. Any roots greater than 4 inches in diameter should not be removed without the consultation of an arborist. And as you see, that did not happen. We'll see. We go to the next one, and the next page is just simply the back of Cam Ricketts' letter showing there was no fountain, no hardscape. A lot of this was not shown on these earlier plans, which was the initial approval. We could have the next slide, please. This is staff approval based on, this is back to December 19th. Staff's approval based on the Bartlett's letter. It says tree protection barricade must be erected along the edge of the existing driveway as shown. Here's the tree protection barricade as shown. It is a 4-foot tall chain link fence. Photos of the barricade must be emailed to Eric Schultz at his email address. Other required conditions include those listed in Mr. Ricketts' letter. They include, but not limited to, the ones that I just read to you. And what you're going to see in the subsequent slides is that this mandatory 4-foot tall chain link fence was never constructed, nor was any photograph of it ever provided to Mr. Schultz. We could go to the next slide. Here you can see the construction of the pool going on, the O'Neill's house on the right. And as you can see, there's heavy equipment tearing up pavement with no fence at all, no protection at all. No chain link fence, no silt fence, just no protection. So they went at it hard at building the pool and to some extent removing the driveway without any protective barrier. And that's not just a requirement of this permit, it's in the ordinance. Eric, if you could go to the next one. This is the ordinance that I'm sure you deal with all the time, 54-330 on tree protection. What I'd like to point out at the top is a protective barricade required. Protective barricades shall be placed around all protected trees and grand trees located in development areas and designated to be safe prior to start of development activity, and shall remain in place until development activities are complete or construction in accordance with standards set forth in this section have been fulfilled. Well, here, they never put in the tree protection at all. They just, as you saw earlier, they started the project and continued on without honoring the tree protection zone. And as you are aware, because there was a special exception made here that reduced the area, it still required a minimum clearance of 12 feet plus an additional 1 foot for every 3 inches diameter breast height. Next slide, please. Now, here we see that there was removal, but that removal stacked everything and was with heavy equipment. And again, no tree protection fence as required. So not only was there no tree protection fence, but there was more disruption of the roots and activity in the zone than was disclosed to Mr. Ricketts. If we could go to the next slide, please. You saw that there's a pool that goes south to north. This is the plan that was approved, and the plan shows that the in-ground cover for the pool is on the house side, on the north side of the house, not on the south side. Where did the Strawns construct it? On the south side, where that the thick red line is. Instead of doing it according to the plan, where it says pool cover, they went down to the tree protection zone and excavated that and installed the pool cover there without any approval and without telling the city they were going to do it. Next slide, please. This is an example, or at least an illustration, a picture of what was going on where the pool cover was ultimately installed, and you can see the further trenching in the tree protection zone to do all the irrigation underground conduit that was put in. There was no supplemental letter from an arborist to support that. Next slide, please, Eric. Here you can see that they are digging down, and it's not just modest digging in the tree protection zone. They're right next to that big oak digging down. On the left, on the right, there were roots greater than 4 inches being removed, contrary to what the conditions were. Next slide, please. And that's we'll skip to the next one. All right, that's the same picture as earlier. And if we could move to the next one, please, Eric. This garden project was a considerable overhaul of the Strong's property. And we can see from those slides what it was before the project. It was beautiful. We'll go to the next one, please. There was considerable additional hardscaping that went on, and this is a color diagram that we did, the dark colors being the impermeable surface. As you saw earlier, where the fountain was supposed to be a grass lawn that's now almost, I'd say, 60% hardscape, which is of concern to my clients, particularly since there is excavation associated with the installation of some of the hardscape. If we could go to the next. And this one, which is the fountain plan, we've highlighted the areas that are near or in the tree protection zone that have been added. And this is directly from the plan that was approved on the 31st of July. Aware that all this was going on contrary to the initial approval, because the O'Neills didn't find out about the conditions and the tree protection zones and the fence until this particular application. They appealed because the entire project had been done without the mandated tree protection. What we see here on the next slide, please, Eric, is our appeal dated August 15, 2024, which is the appeal that brings us here now. And Eric, if we could have the next slide. What is the effect of the appeal? By law, city ordinance, an appeal stays all proceedings in furtherance of the action appealed from, unless the officer from whom the appeal is taken certifies to the board after notice of the appeal shall have been filed with him, that by reason of fact stated in the certificate, a stay would, in his opinion, cause imminent peril to life or property. Well, that never happened. Upon our filing of the appeal, all activity, all construction associated with that fountain was to cease. Did it cease? It didn't cease. At some point, Ms. Creech, next slide, please, sent an email to Mr. Hellman, letting him know that the hardscaping cannot proceed at this time, whether it's part of the appealed fountain permit or withdrawn fence permit, which is merely restating what we saw the ordinance requires. We're already almost 4 weeks out. Next slide, please. That email was the same day as this picture showing all the hardscaping and the base of the fountain on September 9. So right now, we know on this day, September 9, the Strawns are not supposed to be doing any additional work. There's an ordinance that says they shouldn't do it and an email to their lawyer. Next slide, please. That same day, also Mr. Batchelder writes an email to the O'Neills. And as he says in the highlighted wording, 18 Church does not have a permit for the installation of the fountain. So any work they do will be at their own risk if our decision to approve the permit is overturned. It was at their own risk. In the upper part of this email, he says, I've spoken to my staff and they are satisfied the grand trees are not being adversely impacted by this work. I would submit to you that the staff didn't have the benefit of living next door. The staff didn't have the benefit of the pictures that were taken. The staff did not see, and it's not the staff's fault because they don't go out and police, but they did not see the activities that occurred, nor did they witness that there was no fence ever installed that was supposed to be installed before any work commenced. Next slide, please. Did 18 Church stop? No, this is a slide that shows conditions. 3 days later on September 12th, the fountain is now mounted. We do see for the first time a flimsy silt fence, which is not in the location that was specified in the permit, which was running along the driveway. Also, what was specified was a chain link fence, which was never installed. Why did they keep going even though they were on notice? Well, we happen to find out why. Last slide, please, Eric. Because there was a party on October 24th and they were interested in getting the work accomplished before the party. Now it's natural, you'd want to get the work accomplished before the party, but if there's an order that says you shouldn't proceed, one should stop. We would submit that it's overwhelming that the conditions the city imposed on all work related to these trees was never complied with, and in the end, when they did it in late August, early September, was not consistent in compliance with what was required by the city. They did not obtain an arborist letter for the additional hardscaping or the excavation they did to install the conduit, to extend the hardscape. They didn't mess with it. Once they got going and they had the green light from the city in December, they just kept going. They may say, well, it's really not that important. We had things to do and the fountain ain't gonna hurt anybody. It doesn't really matter. It's not that important that we didn't comply with the condition. It's not important that we didn't comply with the stay. It's not important that we didn't comply with Cam Ricketts' letter. We would ask you, since you're the ones on this board, to render a decision that does say it's important. We know the fountain's up there. It's not some gigantic construction project. But here we're dealing with fundamental principles about whether an owner can undertake a project, obtain approval for one thing, and go out to do something else. Give a drawing that shows the pool cover on one end and come back and install it on the other. We submit that in this instance, there should be a determination by the board that reverses the approval. And at a minimum, has a finding that the requirements, the mandatory requirements in the approval you saw back in December that required the chain link fence in that particular position, that required certain things to be done with the trees. A finding that that was violated and that the fountain should be removed because the conditions were not complied with and any associated hardscaping in that application. That may seem harsh. That you may say that's unnecessary. But absent that, there are just no consequences for a blatant disregard of the ordinance, the approval, and Mr. Ricketts' letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else present speaking on the applicant's side that would like to be heard?
Hello, I'm Annalise Simmons. My husband Jack Simmons and I live at 15 Church Street, his childhood home for the past 34 years. Unfortunately, he's unable to be here because he is staffing a health clinic until 6:30. We have concerns regarding street flooding that will be increased due to the current construction project at 18 Church Street. It seems that the previous lawn and gravel landscaping is being covered over by hardscape overlay, including a pool, a driveway, and a fountain surround. We now have flooding in our street from recent hurricanes, but also from higher tides due to rising sea level. By so covering the landscape with masonry, precipitation runoff not being able to percolate through permeable ground will flow directly onto our street, thus aggravating any flooding. We were not approached by these neighbors regarding this project. We were unaware of the details until late August of 2024, when a vague notice was first posted on the resident front door. Then we really did take notice. From a neighborly and environmental standpoint, it seems that this project should not have been approved, and such a magnitude of covering of open ground should not be allowed. We did notice that during this project, groundwater was being pumped out of 18 Church Street onto the street, causing flooding. This occurred on days without any precipitation or storms, and I do have some photographs that show that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Simmons, thank you for coming tonight, because I was going to enter her letter into record because we received it today. This is the only written comment we received, by the way, for this application.
Is there anybody else present that wishes to be heard on the applicant side? Let's go. Is there anybody that is opposed to what the applicant is proposing? All right.
Members of the board, I'm Brian Hellman, 105 Broad Street. I represent Steve and Andrea Strawn, and together with Mr. Strawn here tonight is Cheryl Cade with Warren McCline Landscaping. Cheryl and Warren McCline drew plans for what you see and submitted those applications to the city. A lot of what I think we all heard tonight is a bit of a surprise, notwithstanding the fact that there was this 92-page appeal, which according to the city's own ordinance, because we're talking about ordinances, says that a notice of the appeal is supposed to specify the grounds of the appeal. Here it merely says there wasn't something posted. In fact, there was, and Ms. Cade can testify to that. But what you really have here is a series of lawsuits that have been filed by the neighbors, the O'Neills, against my client, alleging some issue with the property line. And that issue that you heard about with the property line was really not an issue at all. In fact, what happened with that issue with the property line is after it was brought to the Strong's attention, the surveyor went back out there and said, yeah, it was off, it didn't affect the project one bit. And subsequent to that, after filing 4 different complaints against my client, they dismissed that lawsuit. They dismissed that lawsuit, and then for the first time tonight, everybody hears about some issue related to these the construction. The construction that what I heard tonight was Mr. Schultz saying that he visited the property on multiple occasions, and what he saw was everything was totally in order. You saw pictures, and it's interesting that you saw those pictures, that they had this whole entire history. Like this, here we have an email from the 17th saying there was something later, but they have these pictures about what's happening on the property, but they were unaware and filed this late appeal, only to say that things weren't happening properly. Yet, Mr. Schultz says that everything seems fine. According to some information that Ms. Kay prepared, the actual hardscape has been reduced from about 3,000 square feet of impervious to about 2,300 square feet now of impervious, a pretty substantial reduction, about 700 square feet. That was really important in this project because there was flooding. And I think if we back these pictures up, you'll see why. There's a great picture of the O'Neills. Keep backing up if you could, Eric, to. There's a picture that shows an extension to a storm drain. Keep backing. Here we go. This you see is the location, this fence post along here, the property line. You see there are gutters all along the property, extending past the property line onto the Strawn property. And what happened as a result of these gutters, they were dumping tremendous amounts of water. These gutters were installed just a handful of years ago, causing all of the water from half of the side of this house to get dumped on the property. So when Mr. Strawn was dealing with this water issue, what was important was to fix the drainage problem. And that's what this project was partly about. So what we've got is a project that took a lot of hardscape, reduced it substantially, fixed drainage problems by installing new drains from around the pool, collecting water, and making a much better project, while at the same time with Bartlett and with Mr. Schultz saying that notwithstanding the work that was done, it was done in a way to protect the tree by removing the driveway, ending with a project that I think we can all look at and say it's better. It reduces the hardscape, it controls drainage, and with Mr. Schultz's review of the area post and during construction, we don't have any damage that raised any concern for Mr. Schultz. I think we're here to answer any questions you may have, because this is an unusual situation. It arises out of really some badgering that has come out of these folks to the Strongs to basically make, I think, this board an instrumentality of that badgering, whether it was the 4 different complaints that were filed, multiple appeals that were filed, which we think are all about 2 major issues and one that you can't see. These gutters that extend past the property. There's an air conditioner that can't be accessed except from our client's property that they keep wanting access to. And then secondly, thirdly, a hot water heater that's hidden. All of these are issues that they suffer and need to access this property. And all of this is a function of something wholly unrelated to making a much better project. And it's unfortunate that we're all here to deal with it. We can answer any questions the board has to the best of our ability. Obviously, Mr. Strong was not the one out there with a
I have a
shovel.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
Why was the tree protection not erected?
I don't know the answer to that question.
That's not a good answer.
I don't know the answer to that question. However, what we do know is that it was in the areas that we see there was no heavy equipment used in
We
the
saw,
area.
we saw the stuff. put
Where
on
the
top
chain
of the
link
tree.
fence, where the chain link fence ran along the property, there was no heavy equipment used past that chain link fence. The chain link fence only ran along where the driveway was. Right? And so as that driveway was peeled back, as they did installation and peeled it back, no heavy equipment was even able to work in that area because there was vegetation along there.
I was looking at a picture that had a bunch of concrete slab on top of the tree roots.
But the tree protection zone was on the other side of that, and that was pulling back, peeling back as the city had
Anyway.
required.
Okay, so we don't have an answer for that.
We'll get our questions after they've had their chance to fully present. But we'll ask questions in a bit. Are you done with your part of the presentation?
You have anything to add?
I'm not an expert on
Please
this.
stand up, state your name.
Steve Strawn, Church. We try to do everything right by the rules. We're only here to beautify the property. When we took over the property, the prior owner had decided that he wanted what we call a low maintenance garden, which was rock. We felt that it wasn't in a traditional Charleston fashion, if you would. So we consulted what we were told were probably the best people, putting together a traditional landscape garden, which was Wardmore and Klein. We saw other properties around town. I thought they were just great looking and worked with them. They're great people to work with to put together. We thought it would be much more traditional than just rock. They came in and designed this, and what we thought we put together was beautiful. And again, it did have the benefit of creating, less hardscape rather than more. The party that's alluded to, we're great supporters of the community. I don't know about our neighbors, but we are, so we're members of the HCF. The party that we alluded to was a week ago Thursday for the HCF, raise money for the HCF to better the community. We're big members of the PSC, so we're here to support what we think is the best for the community. We're certainly not here, to do anything other than that. I'm certainly no expert on landscaping, plants, what is right, what is not right, but we would never do anything that would take away or do anything outside of the confines of the law, that's for sure. So our whole thing there is just to make the property nicer. I'm sorry that the neighbors across the street were upset. They never said a word to me. We're there all day long. So that's it. We're just trying to make it more beautiful. We didn't invite any of you to come down there and certainly see for yourself. It was not a beautiful property, and not beautiful in terms of, modern, but beautiful in what I think most people would consider to be a traditional Charleston garden. And we'd be happy to show you pictures of before and after. I mean, it's radically different than it was. And I like to think in a better way. So thank you for your consideration. If you have any questions for me.
Thank you.
In summary, what I would say is if there is an issue with the root structure of the tree, which Mr. Schultz had actually visited and saw before the new plantings and the backfilling occurred, that the appropriate steps, I believe, that could be taken would be to engage Bartlett to come back to the site, to investigate and to do what is typically done if there's any damage to a root structure, and that's to allow Bartlett, perhaps at the request of this board, to study and determine what an appropriate plan would be to take any steps if necessary. Certainly, these two oak trees overhang Mr. Strawn's property. Mr. Strawn wasn't out there doing the work. Clearly, it was his contractor who was responsible for that, and it can all be likely fixed. There was no evidence that was ever presented by Mr. Strawn or our applicants here that there was an intent to remove these trees or damage these trees. To the contrary, I think the purpose was to do as much as possible to keep and maintain the trees. And I would request respectfully that would be what the board would look to here, is to cause Bartlett or some other service to be engaged to address any potential issue, if any issue. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on that side? If not, we goes back to the applicant for a rebuttal, short rebuttal.
One moment.
Yeah.
My name is Michael O'Neill. live at 16 Church Street, and I've lived there for over 9 years. The Straughns are the third neighbors to move into this property in the last 9 years. We have had excellent relations with all of our previous neighbors prior to the Straughns moving in. And we continue to have good relations with all of our neighbors. Unfortunately, what Mr. Hellman didn't point out is the dispute is this pole right here, which is a monument on the only recorded survey in Charleston County, which is our recorded survey. And I called Mr. Strawn when they first drew the pool diagram out, and I said, hey, what's going on with the pool? Like, there's an issue here. You're really close to my foundation. So he said, I'm no expert. You're no expert. Talk to my experts. So we wrote a letter to Ms. Verner's office, notifying them that their survey was incorrect, that was submitted to get the permit clearance for this. And she never responded. Nobody responded. I wrote the architect, they didn't respond. Mr. Strawn told me, I got back in touch with Mr. Strawn, and he told me, well, I'm gonna have my expert get back in touch with you. The expert got back in touch, he said his findings are the same. So we were told that our house was on their property. But in reality, this pole here, we have no problem servicing our HVAC because we just climb out a window and we go down here and we service it. This has been here since the 1980s at HVAC, which he will not now let me service without going to a court to do so. And he has just been a nightmare to live next door to. And the fact that they could not move this pool 3 feet to spare our live oaks is horrendous. This tree structure goes underneath my entire foundation. So if this tree dies, so he can have a bench right here, 2 feet away from the root structure, is ridiculous. Because I'm gonna have to jack my house up, dig the root structures out, rebuild the foundation and drop my house back down so they can have a swimming pool 2 feet, 3 feet away from the grand trees. Their property is enormous. All they had to do was move it 3 feet, but they cared so little about my life. And they cared so much about their own reputation with all the societies and all the donor stuff that they're doing, that they could care less about us, their neighbors. And it's been terrible. They've been awful. And you may project one thing, but it's the absolute opposite of what you really are, Steve.
Hi, boys.
Okay, that's great. So right. No.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, excellent. Then this application will be closed to the public. It'll be open to the board for discussion and questions.
Can we see the 3 plans, the existing conditions, the first proposed plan, and whatever revision? If you have in paper, that's fine.
Would you like, this is.
I'm just wondering about the, there's obviously much more hardscape than what was originally, and the city,
Well, here's an exhibit.
you guys looked at the lot coverage, right?
We don't look at lot coverage in landscape elements.
Just structure.
So you want me to get out of this screen share? Where do you want to
But
go?
everything doesn't qualify as walkway, that's sort of.
Well, I guess I would go, before we do that, clarify what decision we're appealing, Lee approving this or Lee allowing this to proceed?
So it's an appeal to. We're an agent for the zoning administrator, his staff. And so things come in, plans come in, we review them.
Which decision was it?
The fountain
Just the
is, I
fountain.
believe, what's at,
It's nothing to do with the tree protection.
that's correct.
But that wasn't conformed to.
But there wasn't a decision made on that. Decision that was made to allow the fountain to proceed without VAR approval.
No, BAR approved, had to approve it
Stop
at a different level.
Yes. So as I see this,
There were two approvals, which I wasn't even privy of. Apparently, the pool came in first. Craig Bennett, I believe, in this set of documents approved it. And then and it did show the green grass panel. And then the fountain came back at a later date and he reapproved the plan on 7/31/24. But again, that, I was not specifically, I guess, involved in that decision because I had addressed the earlier plan with the conditions as stated. So
so Eric, back then, it seems as the applicant went through the process for approvals,
that's correct.
received approvals, but then did not implement the conditions of the approvals.
That's
So if we could see the 7/31 plan that was approved, and then how different is that from what was put in and why the changes and why weren't the changes presented back to the city?
So here's
in
the
a timely
12/19/23. If you note, you see the lawn panel and just the pool. But again, because I was involved earlier, these conditions carried through. Leave the driveway in place, heavy equipment. And I have a thing blocking maybe no roots greater than 4 inches. So that's that one. And then I thought I saw another exhibit that showed the 4-foot chain link fence. Was that back?
It was on the first
I
one
guess
there.
I guess as you're looking at, or, okay. But this is just where the request was for the fencing to go in.
No, I'm sorry.
This is,
There we go. That's where the fence was
12/19.
supposed to be run.
this is 12/19, and then there was another one, 7.
I think, Eric, if you go back to the original application they made, they have those not in these.
Instead of his presentation, go to.
I'll stop share with this one.
So I guess what I look at it is approval was given 7/31. Changes were desired. At that point, you should have gone back and said, hey, we're wanting to do X instead of Y, and gotten an approval for that. It is pretty clear chain link fence was supposed to run and the length of what it was supposed to extend. I don't have any way other than looking at pictures to know if it was ever put in that full length. You know, it's tough to do on the pictures. Start digging the pool, those concrete slabs coming out and they're just moving back. Are they actually moving back? Is that existing, is that walkway that's going on too? So maybe it wasn't going on the roots, whatever. I don't see the chain link fence. So what I perceive this as is an application where there was approvals given, but then changes made that weren't approved and conditions that weren't adhered to. But had they come to us, I probably would have said, that looks great. This is good. We gotta make sure you protect these trees because that's what we're about, is protecting the trees, So I don't even know, like,
But Joel, that's happened before and that doesn't come back to this board.
that's what I'm
There's other
saying.
mechanisms to deal with that.
Is where
right?
did this really be? I feel like this should be back to city staff inspections and permitting of, you didn't do what you were supposed to do, so here's your penalty or fine. Versus us saying, yank it out. Although I will say I was at BR meeting just a month ago and some poor fella on Magazine Street had put some skylights in on his piazza and they told him to yank them out. So he didn't have approval. You know, and so then I look, I'm like, why would the pool cover move from A to B? And if it does, and it changes that design, why wasn't it presented? That's the wrong on your side. I don't know how the pool and the landscaping is impacting your side. The trees, thankfully, still appear to be living, thriving. I do agree that there should at least be a condition that an arborist does treatment on those trees for a considerable length of time, fertilizing, making sure that those roots strengthen and are maintained. I hate the fact that y'all don't get along because I live on Wentworth, we live in very tight quarters. And it would be terrible for me to be walking in my house every day, looking at my neighbor like, so I'm praying that y'all can figure that out. But what I see is a plan in my eyes that we had jurisdiction over, saying yes to a landscape plan. Say yes to. But it's frustrating when approvals are given with conditions and conditions aren't followed, because that seems like it's a big, we're not concerned about what you're doing, we're just gonna do. And then we're fortunate that the we're gonna do didn't damage the neighbor's house that we know of. Didn't kill the trees, and it's still contained within the property and the setbacks for a pool or landscaping and things like that. But I honestly, Eric, I don't know. I feel like there should be a penalty for doing things without the conditions that were placed on an approval. Because that's what spurs everybody, they aren't gonna care about what happens, just get the thing signed off on and do what you want. And I don't think anything is malicious. It's those spur of the moment things. You're in there, the contractor says, hey, maybe we should put the cover on this side because it'll do X, Y, Z, it'll help with this or that. You're like, do it. And you rely on the people that are supposed to know to inform you the better process. Who was the builder? The builder should be here and have his hand slapped, because the builder was doing things that they shouldn't have. It's not you. You're not the one that should be out there saying, wait, I don't see a silt fence. The builder should know my approval requires a silt fence, put it in, or a chain link fence, put it in. It's frustrating. Sorry.
Agreed. Did these trees qualify as boundary trees? Do we see the correct property
Again,
lines anywhere? I mean,
the
are
stakes are the property line and
They
that
look
metal
like
post,
boundary trees,
they would be boundary.
so they're half owned by those folks. But really, the fountain is the issue at hand. I agree with Joel that, the regulations are there for a reason. Everybody, I know at least some of the parties involved are awfully familiar with things. And should, know that the tree protection fencing should have been up. And, I'm surprised there wasn't notes for root pruning in the areas where the hardscape was being put in. That would be normally if a project like this had come to us, we would have said that if we had the paving that close, because it was an
Absolutely.
encroachment into the grand tree canopy.
We don't know if any of that paving is pervious, if it's all impervious, if it's, what the base structure is
Yeah,
on it,
so
but
It's
the
an
fountain
awkward
location,
position, I think, for us to be put in, because it's,
there's nothing wrong with the fountain location. I feel like we'd be being punitive, saying, you didn't follow the rules, here's a fine.
But we're not even being asked that. We're being asked to to repeal the zoning administrator's decision to allow work to continue, right?
No, the fountain approval. Although he brings up a
The
great
fountain
point.
was
it-
approved,
it's
right?
like work is supposed to cease and desist, and when it
and then it kept
continues.
continuing. That is actually something that should be.
Although the email from the owner was dated in July, and it wasn't until September that the work should have ceased, so there's 2 months of work that continues to go. Then picture, I don't know, this is,
Who said the work was supposed to cease?
well, that's when the appeal was
Yep.
filed on the 15th of August.
The city's attorney's
off of-
email to
Yeah,
This
based off of
term.
our standard, and there's an appeal on it, then work should cease. The work did not cease. But the email that was brought up from the wife said
I-
July 13th or something.
I just need it narrowed down to which decision, because there's like
Yeah.
a bunch of
Yeah.
decisions, and I frankly don't think we should be even talking about the tree protection is relevant. I think it's about whether, well, it's only relevant if that's the decision that was made. They allowed work to proceed without tree protection, and it should have been stopped. It's not clear. I feel like it should be narrower.
So I guess that The application is request reconsideration of the zoning administrator's decision to approve a landscape fountain.
When was this plan approved, Eric, the date? What was
So read it in the upper right.
This one here is
It's
seven,
illegible.
7:31.
7:31.
So when was the fountain approved?
7:31. But why would we
And then
say no to the
appealed.
fountain?
Appealed on 8/15.
Correct.
Well, there was a couple of things and I'm not clear on all of it because I got kind of told this was coming to my board. But the fence was like an appeal. They tossed that, I believe, after the property line maybe got kind of disputed or resolved. And then from the fence to the fountain. The fence was not built. There was a fence on the southern property line apparently to be built. And so you notice that the appeal was a yellow form. Because fences technically go to the Board of Zoning Appeals zoning. But then the fountain, I guess. We made the decision would be site design.
But there's nothing wrong with the location of the fountain. Oh. There it is.
No, it's just that it was
not next to
done
the trees at
without
all.
approval. That's,
No, the fountain was approved.
It's approved.
It was approved by staff. and
Lee
and Lee.
approved at the end. Yeah, this is where, because I have a lot of problems with certain things that happened on this. None of which is the question we're being asked tonight.
Yes.
Though I think they do have some rights as being part owners of those trees. Because they're boundary trees.
Yeah, if you look at the picture of the two stakes, gutter.
But you know, there is a state statute, and somebody might know what it is, where you can't be denied access to maintain like that side of your property, because Charleston is all 0 lot line houses, and that's something that exists somewhere. Somebody once pulled it out and showed us.
The way I see it is that all we have to vote on is to overturn the decision for a fountain. There'd be no reason for us to overturn the decision to put the fountain. This location meets all zoning. It's not in the tree root zones. Everything else was the issue.
But that's not our responsibility on this board.
Well, that's why it's a little weird that it came to us. I think.
So are there any other questions of applicant or the defendant? Or of staff?
Really, because our only thing that we're voting on is whether we should uphold the approval for the fountain.
Has the city addressed any of the conditions not being met at any other level?
No, the reality is we have hundreds of properties out that have conditions.
Mhm.
You just can't inspect every property. I just do want to make it clear that once I was told that this was be coming to the Board of Zoning Appeals site design, and I had to post the site, that was my first visit since any approval was given, whether it was in December or in July. You know, we have a system within our department that I forwarded on my thoughts and said to the reviewing staff, because it would go through the portal and come up in somebody's queue as a task to review this application to build a fountain. And they incorporated those conditions and it moved on. So I wasn't even privy exactly as to what dates those were after I kind of did my side of it. So we do rely on the honor system. I mean, there's hundreds of houses being built throughout Charleston that have grand trees and the stamp gets put on there, tree protection required. We have the staff to go out weekly to inspect and in this case, I did ask for photos and they did not come in. So.
Well, I think we can make conditions. You know, I think most people feel like the fountain itself is not in a position that's doing any detriment to anyone or anything. And I think and it's not technically what we're looking at, but the problem is with the potential condition of the trees and the impacts that were made to them. So we can require, long-term, we can do.
Legal counsel's here. I don't know that
We
we
have
can.
Can we ask for a long-term tree treatment plan?
If you're looking, if you'd like to get legal advice, I would recommend a motion to go into executive session.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll make a motion to go into the executive session.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Um,
Opposed? Motion's approved 4-0, and we will exit to the back room.
Who made the motion?
Paula.
And then executive by
Jeff?
Amanda.
Good.
I make a motion that we end executive session. And no decisions were made, and no, it was only discussion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor of that motion?
I in favor.
In favor, all in favor. So here we are again. So I believe that we are here solely on the zoning administrator's decision to approve the landscape fountain. And that's our director, so that's what we're gonna be looking at. I think that that I would certainly recommend staff look into some sort of enforcement of violations that occurred during this construction process. It would be a great idea to get a tree preservation plan or treatment plan in place for several years on that tree. But as we look at the information in front of us for the fountain that was approved by zoning, I don't see a violation for that approval person. I don't see anything wrong with that approval.
Yeah, it was only that they, and that goes back into enforcement, which we don't do enforcement here.
I make a motion to uphold staff's decision.
A second.
That motion was all second, Jeff. Any discussion? Are we ready for vote?
I think we're ready for that.
All right, we'll do individual. Paula,
I in favor.
Jeff,
I in favor.
Amanda.
I in favor.
I vote with the majority. I in favor, so it's 4-0. The fountain was properly permitted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Eric. Here.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Move down to lower church. I personally done it handful of times.
Have your help.
One
When
time
you're ready,
was,
I'll start the next item.
One time. The Angel Oak.
All right, y'all, thank you. We are gonna move on to the next item, right?
Yes.
We are good recording. Thank you. Our next item is 3309 Maybank Highway. And it's Johns Island. The TMS is 27900000196. Request a variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 2 grand trees. Request a special exception from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree. Eric.
This particular application was deferred last month because there was a misunderstanding on the applicant's part. And I had modified my presentation last month. The variance to remove 2 grand trees has been withdrawn. So we're dealing with the special exception to remove just 1 grand tree. So this is the application submitted. This is the property located on Maybank Highway. 2 lots west of St. John's Woods Parkway. It is zone GO, General Office. This is a larger area of the area. The most recent development at the corner of Maybank and St. John's Woods was developed in the county. It's got multiple uses on that property and parking. And what the project entails here is to build a daycare facility utilizing the existing driveway through cross-access easements. There may even be a property line abandonment, I'm not sure, but using that main access off of Maybank and then traversing through the parking to the new daycare facility. The common property line, as you see, has trees stacked up on it. Might have been an old fence line at one point or something, and then there is an old curb cut where I believe like a residential style structure was demolished. So this is a street view. The county, again, was responsible for the development plan where photo left. We do have a overlay on Johns Island where both the city and the county cooperate to get a path off the street. You can see the existing, there is a very large red oak in the required buffer, Maybank buffer, as well as a grand southern magnolia. Here are the plans for the development. So at one point, the daycare, following basically DRB kind of rules, parking to the side and rear, was very forward on the site. And up against that was the original request to remove the 3 trees because it was right on top of them. The city works with both the county properties as well as city properties, and we're trying to get a secondary cross island kind of network going. So we have shared driveways and what have you. So after visiting the site and visiting with DRB and the applicant, we decided it would probably make more sense to have the building move back and align with the front facade of the existing phase 1 building, allow parking in the front, and that lines up again to the front area of that adjacent building, so the driveways could continue paralleling Maybank. So DRB bought into that with enhanced landscaping and probably a screen wall of some sort. And then, of course, the play area for the daycare facility is the green area. So I wasn't quite satisfied with the revised plan from the original. You can see the applicant tried to sneak 2 parking spaces in between the red oak and the live oak. So you'll see a comment on that, but that's just a little bit zoomed in. This is the reports. Tree number 6 is the red oak that we're, it says poor form, but you'll see in the photos, I not necessarily agreeing that it's maybe not a low grade or a weak B grade tree. I don't really see storm damage, but here's their map of how they went through the site. You can see the common property line. So here's the 3 trees, if you will, the water oak in the foreground, the live oak in the center, and then the larger red oak in the back. Again, here's the red oak. I mean, it has lost some lower limbs in the past. I don't think they were, maybe they were pruned, but I don't necessarily see storm damage. But here's the live oak. And then the water oak actually looked a little weak, in my opinion, for the time of year. Just looks like it's got some dead wood and some dieback started. So this will become part of a condition to eliminate those 2 spaces. Hopefully he can work, or the applicant can work with the adjacent neighbor and maybe modify a couple parking spaces to gain those 2 back. nice buffer out front. We'll continue the path. Staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 13 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the site. Must use 4-foot chain link fence. Must have a certified arborist approved to treat grand trees, protected trees to be preserved. Must eliminate the parking space shown within the TBZ of the grand trees to be preserved. Relocate the spaces and prevent or provide a landscape plan for both TRC and DRB staff review and approval.
Thank you, Eric. I'll start with, is there anybody present that is opposed to this application? The applicant is present. Would you like to be heard?
Just real quickly, my name's Chris Donato. I'm with SiteCast. Apologize for last week. I'm also the next agenda item, and my brain had both of them today. Thank you much for your time. Thank you much for Eric. He's been very helpful. The original request was for all three because we had the building up front, and it was a default of, hey, we want to put the building up front. And or actually, I thought that was going to be a requirement. And then Eric worked with us. I think we got a better plan. Also with the daycare, they're going to have sort of a front and rear play area. So I think it actually works out great, and we're fine with removing those 2 parking spaces.
Excellent,
I'm here for any questions.
excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak in favor of the application? We'll close the application to the public, be open to the board for discussion and questions.
So we're only looking at the one tray.
That is correct, the water oak
And is that,
So,
is that the special exception? Or is-
special exception?
Yeah.
Yes, fact finding.
that's nice.
Well, I mean, I think it's already been because DRB typically wants the buildings up near the front. I think the reasons for doing that and the cross connections and everything make a lot of sense. And we're saving 3 trees, so that seems good.
It's an improvement to the
Yeah.
previous plans, which is what we like to see.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we move to approve the staff recommendation.
A second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
I in favor.
Favor, motion is approved 4-0. Thank you. Special exception. All right, so our next item is going to be item B1. It's 1991 Clemens Ferry Road, the TMS number 26800000125. Request a variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree. Eric?
This is the application. This is a proposed Scrubs car wash site. Note that the site has a unique SCDOT right-of-way, portion of their right-of-way, kind of diagonally across the site. It's when they widen Clemens Ferry Road, the state grabbed that for drainage. However, the PUD requires that there's only X number of curb cuts on the south side of Clemens Ferry Road. So many years ago, I can't remember how far back, the corner was developed into a Circle K, and the curb cut was placed on the common property line. That little notch out. So again, this is an area where we have cross access. The driveway will continue plan left to another daycare facility that's out there. But so you can see how we get this started here. Circle K entrance off of Maybank or off of Clements Ferry. And then they would peel off to the right into their site. And then they have to get on the other side of that cleared DOT easement to actually construct the facility. So this is the existing condition. We had the little stub out made. I don't know how many years again, but maybe that tree wasn't grand at the time. It's now grand. You can see it's the only grand tree on site. We cruised the entire property because there were some questions about the surveyor's labeling of trees, but that is the only grand. So in order to maintain the buffer and provide that access, and then you see the drive traverses across the front into the next daycare facility. This is a car wash, so it has to have the queuing and the circulation, and then the vacuum spots. Grade D, Laurel Oak, 1619. Staff recommends approval of the condition to plant 26 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the project site, use chain link fence or tree protection barricades, have certified artists prune and treat trees to be preserved within 25 feet of the proposed improvements, and landscape plan for TRC and DRB staff review and approval.
Eric, thank you. Again, I'll say, is there anybody present that's opposed to this application? Is the applicant present?
Chris Donato with Sidecast. I'm representing Mr. Davis, who's the owner of the property. It's an unfortunate situation. I have to believe when they first put the stub out in for the ingress of this property, that tree was not granted at that time. It's not we're not aiming for it. It just happens to fall right into the driveway that's existing that we have to use.
Understood.
And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to be heard in favor of the application? We'll close the application to the public, go back to the board for discussion or motion.
We got a pretty hardship on the
Yeah, I
driveway.
agree with that. Meets the hardship. And the tree isn't in that great condition and Laurel Oaks grew super fast,
All right.
so. Make a motion, we move to approve the staff recommendations.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, say aye in favor.
I'm in
Aye
favor.
in favor. Any opposed? None are opposed. It's approved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Wasn't that widening like 10 years ago?
The first phase, I can't remember.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was where it stopped. Like,
All right. Next item is item B2, which is Maybank Highway and Promenade Vista Street, James Island, the TMS number 424000038. Request a variance from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 5 grand trees. Aaron.
So this application will be modified for 4 grand trees. I have made the decision that one is a grade F based on my visual assessment and then the arborist evaluation. It's in pretty bad shape. So this is the application. We're going to James Island Maybank Highway near the Standard and the Avalon development, which is a gathering place. GB, BP, gathering place. We have the residual out parcel, if you will, on the corner, heavily treed today. The history on Gathering Place is that many moons ago, under the leadership of Tim Keene, matter of fact, this area was studied and was to be like the node, a major node for mixed use and walkability and all your services nearby, higher densities, et cetera, hence the zoning was placed. The PUD, that was Gathering Place, but for some specific reasons, they had to rezone. But so we have this application in. And just the overall, and just keep in mind that, you know, the efforts here, I don't know how many years back now, we had that large tree preserve area, that triangular piece to the south, and then the piece behind the church. And then there's actually restricted covenants on the live oak that's in the middle of that courtyard on the Avalon. So at the time, the Standard, you know, bought just X amount of acreage and met all the Gathering Place requirements for frontage and height and setback and what have you. So we have this corner lot. And again, it's, you know, part of the plan is for a little higher density city center. You got the existing trees, part of the decision to, if you will, again, many years back, the lesser quality trees were up on the Maybank, and then the better live oak trees were in that, what became the tree save area to the rear. So you have laurel oak, a few, actually, they're all laurel oak, I think one live oak in there. So 2 are multi-stem and 2 are singular stem. And then the really large laurel oak is the F. And then we do have the 25-inch live oak. It has a very strange arching trunk. And they'll be surveying that canopy to make sure that it doesn't conflict with the building, but it looks like they've given it enough space, and then the other live oak will be preserved. Again, they have to meet certain 0 to 5 foot setbacks and frontage ratios and so on and so forth. So L-shaped building fronting on both streets, and then a nice canopy covered courtyard in the back to work with the existing standard facility. So the arborist report, 1614 codominant laurel oak C, second tree 1414 codominant laurel oak, third tree 28 laurel oak B, and the fourth laurel oak group B, and then the fifth tree, the 53. I have an actual different letter on that one, but so here's your first tree engulfed in vines, double, kind of close to where cut was occurred for the existing Promenade Vista Road. Again, the 14 laurel oak embedded in vines and overgrowth. 28 laurel oak. 24 laurel oak. All stretching, very high canopy, stretching for light within the forested area. Here's the B grade live oak with the arch to it, but should be successful if preserved properly. Then here's the letter on the 53-inch, and you can see how far and deep the cavity is in that band union, and it's close to the standard now. It's basically a hazardous tree, needs to get out. So staff recommends approval with the condition of plant 82 caliber inches of native canopy trees. That may be a little bit tough on this site with the idea of preserving the existing trees in the courtyard, but maybe they can work with the standard and plant some infill here and there. 4-foot chain link fence, certified arborist prune and treat, and landscape plan for DRB and PRC staff approval.
Thank you, Eric. Is there anybody present that is opposed to this application? Applicant is present.
And there was no public comment, right?
There was no public comment.
I'm Colleen Williams, I'm with Stephen Whiteside, and we are representing Northland, who is just filing the application. We are under due diligence on this right now. I think Eric laid out a pretty good case that it's currently really dense. There's dense canopy. There's 7 grand trees, not including some large pines, and I think any development on the site would be rather challenging without implicating some combination of these grand trees. I think what's unique about this development is that we're able to share parking with the standard next door, which allows for a large tree save area in the rear of the site. And yeah, it's our goal to adhere to the spirit of the gathering place zoning by activating Promenade Vista and Bay Bank Highway and kind of continuing that street design between the standard and Avalon. So I think we might be able to fit 82 inches on there, Eric, and if not, I think that the standard has offered up that we could potentially plant offsite.
Right.
So tree number 1 says removal required for
Yes.
Charleston water system.
So we had some coordination with CWS. They are worried about, I think, tying into that, how we tie into that easement and avoid that tree. They threw out the possibility that we could potentially like route the utilities around, but we just assumed worst case scenario that just given their feedback, that might have to come down.
Well, I'm surprised there's no public comment, but that's good.
Yeah, I was
Thank you.
surprised.
What happened?
This was,
Well, no,
this
the
was,
standard was a big.
this was better known as Maybank Urban
Oh,
Farms.
man.
Anybody else want to speak in favor of the application? Close the applications. Oh,
I'll go.
all right.
It's fine.
I mean, you waited this long.
That's right.
So I'm Matt Galetta with Northland, up in Boston. So again, we own the existing standard next door and are on diligence, pursuing this property. And just like Eric mentioned too, again, looking to adhere to the 82 inches on site, but that's something we can certainly be flexible with the existing standard. And again, looking to tie into a central green courtyard and amenity space that both communities can use. That's all that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we're gonna close the application to the public. Over to the board. Oh. Site.
Well, we've always known this parcel was gonna be, I mean, this parcel was always gonna be developed and the gathering space is super dense. And it was really controversial because people assumed that this was, there was one house out there and it was all green space and people assumed that the community was gonna be there forever. That's why the gathering, well, it didn't get used all the places it was gonna be used. But I think the plan is good, and I think having the whole building not up against the street is actually a nice bit of relief in that area, because everything's right behind the sidewalk and it has a decent tree, same
I
area.
was gonna ask, it's not pertinent, but I'm just curious, those planter or cutouts in the sidewalk, those are already planted, right? Like isn't there
The
streetscape?
promenade vistas are.
On Maybank, there is.
Yeah, the
Maybank,
Maybank frontage,
yeah.
so there, it's gonna look like adjacent, right, where you've got building and then the plantings out behind the curb.
Listen, I think I have to recuse myself because the young man said he's from Boston.
Oh,
I'm from Chicago and a Blackhawks fan. We don't say that loud these days. So,
you shouldn't have got up.
yes. Wow, the goal was good. No, I think it's a great plan and the arrow shows you where to go, and from here on the backside there, follow the arrow to the building.
Yeah. I agree with that. I make a motion, we move to approve the staff recommendations, and I think they should take out that Laurel Oak tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am.
Second. All right. All right, so motion by Amanda, second by Paula. Any discussion? And all in favor?
I in favor.
In favor, any opposed? It's approved 4-0, thank you.
Thanks. So did we agree on January 7th?
Yeah, exactly.